It was a regular Tuesday morning in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The kind of place where people waved to each other while jogging, where kids played basketball in driveways, and where everything seemed predictable until something shocking showed up online. Marcus, a successful real estate lawyer in his mid-30s, was sipping his coffee while scrolling through his phone. He had a busy day ahead, but before diving into work, he usually checked local property updates. Real estate wasn't just his job, it was his passion. That morning, however, his heart skipped a beat. On one of the biggest real estate listing sites, he saw something strange. A familiar-looking house popped up in the for sale section. The address? His own home. At first, Marcus thought it was some kind of glitch. Maybe someone copied the wrong information. He clicked on the listing, but there it was. Full photos of his house, details about the square footage, the backyard, even the renovated kitchen he had invested in just last year. And then he noticed something even more disturbing. The listing wasn't posted by him, nor by any agent he knew. Instead, it was linked to the local HOA representative, Karen Thompson. Yes, that Karen. The woman known in the neighborhood for her endless complaints, constant nitpicking, and obsession with rules. Karen had argued with Marcus before about the color of his front door, about where his trash bins were placed, even about his guests' cars parked for more than a few hours. But listing his house online? That crossed a line nobody could have imagined. Marcus dropped his coffee mug onto the counter, barely noticing the spill. His pulse raced. Why would Karen do this? Was it some sort of mistake? Or was it something darker, like an attempt to push him out of the neighborhood? He felt a storm building inside him. Marcus was not just a homeowner. He was a real estate lawyer. He knew the laws, the contracts, the rights, and if Karen thought she could pull something like this and get away with it, she had chosen the wrong man to mess with. But before he could plan his next step, Marcus realized how dangerous this situation was. A fake listing could damage his reputation, scare potential clients, and even cause strangers to show up at his house thinking it was for sale. And the bigger question was why? Why was Karen targeting him? Marcus clicked through the listing again. Everything about it screamed intentional. The photos weren't pulled from an old source. They were new. Someone had clearly been taking pictures of his home recently. That meant Karen, or someone working with her, had been watching. A chill ran down his spine. This wasn't just about property. This was personal. And Marcus knew he couldn't just sit back. He paced around his living room, his mind racing. He thought about calling Karen immediately, but he stopped himself. Karen was sharp-tongued and manipulative. If he confronted her without proof, she would twist the situation, maybe even accuse him of harassment. No, this needed strategy, evidence, a plan. That's when Marcus remembered something his father used to say. Never fight anger with anger. Fight it with truth, and the truth always wins. So Marcus opened his laptop, started taking screenshots of the listing, saving every single detail, timestamps, web addresses, even the metadata hidden inside the page. He was building his case. Because this wasn't just a neighborly feud anymore. This was about rights, law, and respect. And Marcus? He was ready for battle. But before making his move, Marcus couldn't shake one last thought. If Karen could do this to him, a man who knows the law, what could she do to someone else? Someone who didn't have the knowledge or resources to fight back? That's when Marcus realized this wasn't just his fight. This was about standing up to bullies who abused power. And the first strike? It would start tonight. And what would you do if your neighbor secretly listed your home online? Without your permission? Would you call them out, call a lawyer, or stay quiet? Tell me in the comments. Marcus sat at his desk long after the sun had gone down, his laptop glowing in the dim light of his study. He wasn't just a lawyer tonight, he was a detective, piecing together a puzzle that shouldn't have existed in the first place. He had already taken screenshots of the fake listing, but he knew screenshots weren't enough. He dove deeper, checking the listing's back-end details. Years in real estate law had taught him where to look. Metadata, IP traces, even timestamps that most people didn't know existed. Sure enough, there it was. The listing had been uploaded from an account tied directly to Karen Thompson's email address. Marcus leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. There was no doubt anymore. Karen had deliberately listed his home online. And that meant she had crossed into very dangerous territory. But Marcus didn't want to go to war blindly. He needed to understand her motive. Why him? Why now? The next morning, Marcus decided to test the waters. He walked outside, coffee in hand, pretending it was just another day. Across the street, Karen was trimming her rose bushes, her perfectly pressed khaki, pants, and wide-brimmed sun hat making her look like she was in some HOA promotional brochure. Marcus forced a smile. "Morning, Karen," he said casually. Karen looked up, her eyes sharp behind her oversized sunglasses. "Good morning, Marcus. Lovely day, isn't it?" It was the kind of small talk that felt rehearsed. Polite on the surface, poisonous underneath. "Yeah," Marcus said, pausing deliberately. "Saw something interesting online last night." Karen froze for just a fraction of a second, just long enough for Marcus to notice. Then she straightened up, her smile tightening. "Oh, what's that?" Marcus sipped his coffee. "A house listed for sale in this neighborhood. Looked a lot like mine." There it was again, that tiny flicker of panic in her eyes. Quickly, she masked it with a laugh. "Oh, Marcus, you must have misread. Mistakes happen online all the time." Marcus tilted his head, pretending to think. "Sure, but it was pretty detailed. Even had photos of my backyard. Crazy, huh?" Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. "Well, technology can be tricky." Marcus gave a slow nod. "Yeah, but you know what's not tricky? Tracking where a listing comes from. I'd hate to think someone in this neighborhood would cross that line." For the first time, Karen's mask slipped. Her eyes hardened and her voice dropped its fake sweetness. "Some people don't always fit into a neighborhood, Marcus. Sometimes they need a little push." Marcus's stomach clenched, but he kept his face calm. "Well," he said evenly, "luckily for me, I don't get pushed easily." Back inside his house, Marcus replayed the conversation in his mind. She had as good as admitted it. But he wasn't ready to strike yet. He needed to hit her where it would hurt most, not just legally, but publicly. So he began gathering more evidence. He contacted the real estate site where the fake listing had been posted, filing a formal complaint and requesting a full digital log of the account activity. Being a lawyer, he knew the right language to use, words like fraudulent, misrepresentation, and defamation of property value. Those weren't just legal terms. They were warning shots. Within hours, the site's compliance team responded, flagging the listing for review. They assured him it would be taken down while they investigated. But Marcus knew Karen wasn't going to stop here. If she had the nerve to post his house online once, she would try something else. And that's when Marcus realized this wasn't just about protecting himself anymore. It was about setting an example. That night, he called his best friend James, who also happened to be a tech consultant. James had helped him with property disputes before, digging up digital trails when clients were being scammed. "Man, this is insane," James said after Marcus explained everything. "She literally committed fraud. You've got her nailed." "Yeah," Marcus said, pacing the room. "But if I go straight to court, it'll drag out. And Karen will spin it like I'm overreacting. I need something more visible. Something that shows the whole neighborhood what she's doing." James was silent for a moment, then chuckled. "So basically, you want to beat her at her own game." Marcus grinned. "Exactly." The next day, Marcus put his plan into motion. He ordered a high-quality surveillance system for his home. Cameras, motion sensors, the works, not just for security but for proof. If Karen had already been sneaking around taking photos, she'd probably try again. And this time, Marcus would catch her red-handed. At the same time, he began drafting a legal notice. It wasn't a lawsuit, not yet. Just a formal cease and desist letter, professionally worded, sharp as a blade, ready to deliver at the right moment. Marcus was building a trap, and Karen didn't even know she was walking right into it. But deep down, Marcus knew something Karen didn't. This wasn't just about a house. This was about dignity, and he wasn't going to let her take that from him. If you were Marcus, would you go public right away and expose Karen? Or would you play it smart and wait until she slipped up again? Comment your move. I want to see how you'd handle this kind of neighbor drama. For the next few days, Marcus kept his head down, pretending life was normal. He went to work, handled his clients, and smiled at neighbors as if nothing unusual was happening. But behind the scenes, his plan was unfolding. Surveillance cameras were installed. The cease and desist letter was drafted, and he was waiting for Karen to slip up. But Karen wasn't the type to sit quietly. On Thursday evening, Marcus returned home from work to find an official-looking paper taped to his front door. He frowned, pulling it off. It was a violation notice from the HOA, signed by none other than Karen Thompson herself. The complaint: improper lawn maintenance, unapproved exterior decorations, frequent visitor parking violations. Marcus stared at the list in disbelief. His lawn was perfectly trimmed. His only decoration was a small welcome mat and visitor parking. That was pure fiction. Karen wasn't just poking at him, she was weaponizing the HOA. That night, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with the violation notice spread out in front of him. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Unapproved decorations, really? But underneath the humor, anger simmered. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was an attempt to paint him as a problem. Homeowner. And in a neighborhood ruled by HOA politics, perception mattered. The next morning, Marcus noticed whispers. A couple of neighbors gave him polite but wary looks. Mrs. Jenkins from next door, usually chatty, suddenly seemed rushed when she saw him. Word was spreading and Karen was controlling the narrative. Marcus knew he had to act fast. That evening, Marcus called a small neighborhood meeting. Not official HOA business, just an informal get-together at his house. He invited only a handful of trusted neighbors, people he knew respected him. When they arrived, Marcus laid everything out. He showed them the fake real estate listing, the screenshots, and the violation notice. "This is what I've been dealing with," he said. "Karen isn't just enforcing rules. She's targeting me personally." The room was silent for a moment. Then Mr. Lewis, an older resident who had lived there for 20 years, spoke up. "Marcus, you know Karen's been pulling stunts like this for years. She pushes people around, but nobody ever stands up to her." Mrs. Jenkins sighed. "She once fined me for hanging a seasonal wreath. Said it was too flashy, but I didn't think we could do anything about it." Marcus leaned forward. "We can. I'm not just a homeowner, I'm a lawyer. If she's abusing her power, I can take her down legally. But I need people to back me up." For the first time, Marcus saw hope flicker in their eyes. People were tired of Karen, tired of living under her constant surveillance and nitpicking. And just like that, Marcus realized something powerful. He wasn't fighting alone anymore. But Karen wasn't done. The very next day, Marcus received an email from the HOA board. The subject line, "Notice of Hearing." The email stated that multiple complaints had been filed against him. Noise violations, unapproved gatherings, even accusations of intimidating behavior. The board wanted him to appear at a formal hearing the following week. Marcus clenched his fists. He hadn't broken a single rule. This was Karen's counterattack, her attempt to discredit him before he could expose her. But what Karen didn't realize was that Marcus had already anticipated this move, and this time he was ready. That evening, Marcus reviewed the surveillance footage from his new cameras. Hours of ordinary recordings, until one clip made his blood run cold. At 2 a.m., under the dim glow of a streetlight, a figure crept across his lawn. The woman wore a hoodie pulled tight. But when she turned toward the camera, there was no mistaking her sharp features. It was Karen. She walked up to his driveway, crouched, and placed something near his trash bins before scurrying away. Marcus immediately grabbed a flashlight, ran outside, and checked the spot. Sure enough, there was a small plastic bag tucked out of sight. Inside, empty beer cans, fast food wrappers, and cigarette butts. Karen was planting trash to frame him. Marcus stared at the bag, half furious, half amazed at the pettiness. "She's actually manufacturing violations," he muttered. But this time it was her mistake. She didn't know she'd been caught on camera. And Marcus? He now had the smoking gun. He called James the next morning. "I've got her on video," Marcus said. "Middle of the night, planting trash on my property." "It's crystal clear," James whistled. "Man, she's digging her own grave. You could walk into that hearing next week and end this." Marcus nodded slowly. "I could. But I don't just want to win. I want everyone to see the truth. The whole neighborhood needs to know who she really is." For Marcus, this wasn't just about clearing his name anymore. It was about justice, about making sure Karen could never abuse her power again. And with the evidence in his hands, he was ready for the next round. If you were Marcus, would you reveal the surveillance footage right away to shut Karen down? Or would you wait until the official HOA hearing for maximum impact? Drop your answer, I want to see your strategy. The HOA hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday evening at the community clubhouse, a beige, wearing his sharpest navy blue suit. He wasn't just dressing for the occasion, he was sending a message. He was a lawyer, a professional, and not someone to be pushed around. The room slowly filled with board members, a few curious neighbors, and of course Karen Thompson herself. She strutted in like she owned the place, pearl necklace gleaming, lips curled into a smug smile. She glanced at Marcus and whispered loud enough for those around her to hear, "Some people just don't know how to follow rules." Marcus didn't bite. He just smiled politely and waited. The meeting began with formalities, then moved quickly to Marcus's violations. The HOA president, Mr. Daniels, cleared his throat as he read from a sheet of paper. "Marcus Carter has been cited for multiple infractions," Daniels said. "Noise disturbances, improper waste disposal, and hosting unapproved gatherings. These issues have been raised repeatedly by board member Karen Thompson." Karen folded her hands smugly, nodding as if she were the picture of civic duty. Marcus leaned forward. "With all due respect, these accusations are false, and I have proof." The room stirred. Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Proof?" Marcus reached into his briefcase and pulled out a USB drive. "Yes, proof that not only are these complaints fabricated, but that Karen herself has been manufacturing them." Karen's face tightened for the first time. Marcus plugged the drive into the projector. The lights dimmed, and the surveillance footage played on the wall. The room fell silent as Karen appeared on screen, creeping across Marcus's lawn in the middle of the night. She crouched by his trash bins, planting the bag of beer cans and cigarette butts. The footage was crystal clear, no way to deny it. Gasps echoed through the room. Mrs. Jenkins whispered, "Oh my God!" Mr. Lewis muttered, "I knew she was up to something." Marcus paused the video. "This is from 2 nights ago." The so-called trash violation was planted by Karen Thompson herself. All eyes turned to Karen, her face flushed red, her composure cracking. That video could be fake," she stammered. "Edited." Marcus kept his voice calm but firm. "It's raw footage, time-stamped, straight from my security system. And if necessary, I can have it forensically verified. But we all know what we just saw." The room buzzed with murmurs. The HOA president looked uncomfortable, shuffling his papers. "Karen, this is very serious." Karen snapped. "Oh, come on!" "You're all acting like he's a victim. Marcus has been nothing but difficult since the day he moved in. He thinks he's smarter than everyone else because he's a lawyer. He doesn't respect the HOA, and he doesn't respect me." Her voice cracked with anger. It wasn't the calm, composed, rule enforcer persona she always wore. This was the real Karen, bitter, power-hungry, and out of control. Marcus leaned back, letting her dig her own grave. When the room finally quieted, Marcus spoke softly, but his words carried weight. "I respect the HOA, I respect community rules. What I don't respect is abuse of power. I moved here because I wanted peace, not conflict. But what Karen has done isn't just unfair, it's illegal. She listed my home online without permission. She planted evidence. She tried to ruin my reputation. That's not leadership. That's harassment." The silence that followed was heavy. Even Daniels, who often sided with Karen, looked shaken. Finally, Mr. Lewis stood up. "I've lived here for 20 years. Karen's been bullying people the whole time, finding us for nonsense, threatening us, making life miserable. But this," he pointed at the frozen frame of Karen on the screen, "this crosses the line." Others nodded, voices rising in agreement. "She fined me for leaving my blinds open once. She said my dog's collar wasn't HOA approved. She told my kids they couldn't use sidewalk chalk." One by one, neighbors began sharing their stories. Years of pent-up frustration spilled into the room. And for the first time, Karen was on the receiving end. Her face twisted with fury. "You're all ungrateful. I've been protecting this neighborhood for years, keeping it in order. Without me, this place would fall apart." But nobody was listening anymore. The tide had turned. Mr. Daniels finally raised his hand to quiet the room. He looked tired, defeated. Given the evidence presented, and the clear conflict of interest, the board will be holding a vote to suspend Karen Thompson's authority until further review. Karen shot to her feet. "You can't do this. I am the HOA." Marcus stood slowly, his voice calm but razor sharp. "No, Karen, you're just a neighbor. Same as the rest of us." The room erupted in applause, not loud but steady like a wave of relief. For once, people weren't afraid. Karen grabbed her bag and stormed out, muttering under her breath. The door slammed behind her, rattling the windows. Marcus exhaled, finally feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. But deep down, he knew this wasn't over. Karen wasn't the type to give up quietly, and he was right. If you were in that HOA meeting, would you have stood up against Karen too? Or kept quiet to avoid drama? Be honest. I want to hear what kind of neighbor you'd be. For a few days after the HOA hearing, the neighborhood felt lighter. People smiled at Marcus, waved when they passed his house, even stopped to thank him for standing up to Karen. For once, he felt like he belonged, not just as a homeowner, but as part of a community. But Marcus knew better than to relax. He'd studied people like Karen before, in courtrooms and in life. Bullies didn't vanish when they were called out. They came back stronger, nastier, and more reckless. And sure enough, Karen wasn't gone. It started with little things. Marcus came out one morning to find his car keyed, a long, jagged scratch running across the driver's side. No witnesses. No cameras pointed in that direction. A few days later, his mailbox was stuffed with anonymous flyers accusing him of being a liar, a fraud, and a danger to the neighborhood. The flyers looked cheap, probably printed at home, but they were spread around the block. By the weekend, Marcus noticed a different kind of shift. Some neighbors avoided eye contact again. A few parents hurried their kids inside when he walked by. Karen was planting seeds of doubt, whispering poison in ears behind closed doors. One evening, Marcus's younger sister, Nina, came over for dinner. She lived across town but visited often. As soon as she walked in, Marcus knew something was wrong. "You okay?" he asked, setting down 2 glasses of wine. Nina sighed, her shoulders heavy. "I don't know how to tell you this, but I think Karen's coming after me too." Marcus froze. "What do you mean?" Nina pulled out her phone and showed him screenshots. Fake social media accounts posting nasty comments, spreading rumors about her job, even hinting at family scandals. "She's dragging me into this," Nina whispered, her voice shaking. "And I didn't even do anything." Marcus clenched his fists. His sister was a nurse, one of the kindest, most hard-working people he knew, and Karen was trying to smear her reputation just to get at him. That night, Marcus barely slept. It was one thing for Karen to target him, but going after his family? That crossed a line no one should ever cross. The next morning, Marcus filed a formal police report. He handed over the scratched car photos, the flyers, and screenshots of the online harassment. The officer nodded, sympathetic, but his words were cautious. "Look, Mr. Carter, this is ugly. But unless we catch her in the act, it's hard to prove. Without direct evidence linking her, it's all circumstantial." Marcus walked out of the station fuming. He had evidence before. The fake listing, the planted trash. But Karen had learned. She was getting sneakier, hiding behind shadows, pulling strings where she couldn't be directly caught. But Marcus wasn't giving up. If Karen wanted to play dirty, he was ready to dig deeper. That weekend, Marcus and James set up additional cameras, discreet, almost invisible, hidden near the street, angled toward his car, his mailbox, and even the pathway to his house. If Karen tried again, they'd catch her. But Marcus didn't just want defense. He wanted offense. He wanted to know how Karen was spreading her lies, who she was pulling into her circle, and what her next move might be. So James introduced him to a friend, Melissa, a digital forensics specialist. She wasn't just good with computers, she was brilliant. Within hours, Melissa traced the fake social media accounts harassing Nina. Guess where the IP address led? Karen's house. Marcus felt a surge of both anger and relief. Finally, a smoking gun. "Careful, though," Melissa warned. "If she realizes you're onto her, she'll double down. People like her don't stop until they're forced to." Marcus nodded grimly. "That's exactly what I plan to do, force her." But Karen wasn't waiting around. The following Monday, Marcus got a call from his law office. His assistant sounded nervous. "Marcus, there's someone outside the building handing out flyers about you. They say you've been sued for fraud, that you harass your neighbors. Clients are asking questions." Marcus's stomach dropped. Karen had taken the fight straight to his career. He drove to his office immediately. Sure enough, there she was, Karen, standing on the sidewalk with a stack of papers, handing them out to strangers. Marcus parked, walked straight up to her, and for the first time in weeks, his voice cracked with fury. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Karen?" She smiled coldly. Just exercising my right to free speech. Isn't that what you lawyers always preach? Marcus snatched one of the flyers. It was a mess of lies, claims that he falsified contracts, that he'd been investigated for misconduct, that he was under review by the Bar Association. You're going too far, Marcus said, his voice low but deadly serious. Karen leaned in close, her perfume sharp and suffocating. Oh no, Marcus. I'm just getting started. You humiliated me in front of everyone. Now I'll humiliate you in front of the world. That night, Marcus sat at his desk, staring at the pile of lies Karen had printed. His career, his reputation, even his family, they were all under attack. But Marcus wasn't broken. He wasn't beaten. Because Karen had finally shown her hand. She was reckless now, sloppy, letting her obsession drive her, and that made her vulnerable. Marcus whispered to himself, "You picked the wrong lawyer to mess with, Karen." And as he started drafting his next move, he knew this fight wasn't just about property anymore. It was about survival. If you were in Marcus's shoes, would you take Karen to court right now? Or wait to collect even more evidence before striking? Tell me your battle plan. I want to know how you'd fight back. Marcus spent the night at his desk, the glow of his laptop casting sharp shadows across the room. His walls were covered with files, printouts, and sticky notes like he was preparing for trial. Because in a way he was. Karen had crossed every boundary. She attacked his property, his reputation, his family, even his career. Marcus wasn't just angry anymore, he was focused, calculated, ready to fight back with the one weapon. Karen couldn't compete with the law. The next morning, Marcus walked into his office with a stack of documents under his arm. His assistant looked up, still shaken from the scene Karen had caused outside their building. "Don't worry," Marcus said with a reassuring smile. "She's not going to get away with this." He closed his office door and began drafting the legal paperwork. Defamation claim for the flyers, the online harassment and the false accusations. Harassment claim for the repeated targeting of his property, his sister and his professional life. Invasion of privacy for listing his home online without consent. By lunchtime, he had a preliminary case file thick enough to crush Karen in court. But Marcus knew timing mattered. If he rushed, she'd play the victim. If he waited too long, she'd cause more damage. So Marcus decided on a middle ground. He wouldn't just sue her quietly. He'd make it public. That evening, Marcus called James and Melissa over. The three of them sat in his living room like a war council. Marcus laid out the plan. "I'm filing suit, but not just for damages. I want a restraining order. If I can prove she's a danger to me, my family, and my livelihood, the court can legally strip her of her ability to harass me further." Melissa nodded. "You've got the digital trail. The fake accounts, the IP logs, the listing. It's airtight." James grinned. "And don't forget the video of her planting trash. That's gold." Marcus leaned back, a determined fire in his eyes. "This isn't just about winning. It's about sending a message. She wants to play dirty? Fine, but now she plays on my battlefield." The following Monday, Marcus hand-delivered the cease and desist letter to Karen's doorstep. The document was sharp, cold, and full of legal teeth. Karen opened the door in her bathrobe, smirking as if she'd been expecting him. "What's this?"
More whining?
Marcus handed her the envelope. "Read it carefully." She tore it open and scanned the pages. Her smirk faltered, then vanished. Her hands trembled as she read the words, "Intent to pursue legal action," and defamation damages exceeding $250,000. You can't be serious," she stammered. "Oh, I'm very serious," Marcus said, his voice calm and steady. "You wanted a fight? Now you've got one, in a courtroom where lies don't work." Karen's face twisted with rage. "You think you can scare me? I'll ruin you before you even step foot in court." Marcus leaned in slightly, his voice low but razor-sharp. "No, Karen, you've already ruined yourself. All I'm doing is holding up the mirror." Then he turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the doorway clutching the letter like it was a live grenade. The next few days were tense. Karen stopped parading around the neighborhood, stopped handing out flyers. But Marcus wasn't fooled. She was regrouping, plotting her next move. Meanwhile, Marcus's case began gaining traction. Word spread through the neighborhood that Karen was being sued. Neighbors who once feared her now whispered in excitement. Some even came to Marcus privately. offering to testify about their own experiences with her harassment. Mrs. Jenkins admitted. Karen had fined her 3 times for illegal mailbox decorations. Mr. Lewis revealed she'd once threatened to tow his car for being parked too straight. Others shared stories of intimidation, insults, and years of petty control. The tide had officially turned. Then came the breakthrough Marcus had been waiting for. Melissa discovered that Karen had been using her HOA email account, not just her personal one, to create the fake real estate listing. That meant she wasn't acting just as a private neighbor. She was abusing her official HOA role. Marcus almost laughed when Melissa showed him the evidence. "This isn't just a personal case anymore," he said. "This is HOA misconduct. She could lose her position permanently, maybe even face criminal charges." For the first time, Marcus felt a sense of control return. He wasn't just reacting to Karen anymore. He was leading the fight. That Friday, Marcus walked into the community clubhouse during open board hours. Neighbors were milling around, sipping coffee, casually chatting. Karen was there too, stiff as a statue, her eyes narrowing when she saw him. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply announced to the room, "I've filed suit against Karen Thompson for defamation, harassment and abuse of HOA authority, and I have the evidence to prove every claim." The room went silent. Karen's face drained of color. Marcus continued, "For too long, this neighborhood has been ruled by fear. But that ends now. Karen doesn't get to bully us anymore. She doesn't get to twist the rules to fit her power trips. She's accountable. And I'm making sure of it." Neighbors began to clap, hesitant at first, then louder. The support rippled through the room. Karen tried to speak, her voice cracking, but the applause drowned her out. Marcus stood tall, not as just a lawyer, but as a man defending his home, his family, and his dignity. And for the first time, Karen looked small. If you were Marcus, would you settle the case privately to shut Karen down fast? Or take it all the way to court to expose her publicly? Tell me, are you the type to go for peace or justice? Karen had gone quiet for almost a week after Marcus announced the lawsuit. Too quiet. The neighborhood felt strange without her constant hovering. No violation slips on doors, no angry emails in inboxes, no sharp stares from across the street. On the surface, it seemed like peace had finally arrived. But Marcus wasn't fooled. He knew Karen too well by now. Silence wasn't surrender, it was plotting. Late one night, Marcus was reviewing case files in his study when his phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. "You don't know the whole story. Meet me at the park by midnight, alone." Marcus frowned. His gut screamed setup, but curiosity gnawed at him too. What if someone in the neighborhood had dirt on Karen? What if there was more evidence, something big enough to crush her case completely? He texted James just in case. "Got a weird message. Might be bait? I'll keep you posted," James replied instantly. "Bro, don't go alone. She's unpredictable." But Marcus was already grabbing his coat. The park was dimly lit, shadows stretching long under the flickering lamps. Marcus walked slowly, scanning his surroundings. He spotted a figure near the gazebo. It was Karen. She stepped out of the shadows, arms crossed, lips curled in a twisted smile. Well, the great lawyer comes running when a woman sends a mystery text." Marcus clenched his jaw. "So it was you. What's this about?" Karen's voice dripped with venom. "You think you've beaten me. You think this little lawsuit makes you some kind of hero, but you don't understand, Marcus. I built this neighborhood. I decide who stays and who goes. And you? You don't belong here." Marcus kept his tone calm, but his heart pounded. "You've lost, Karen. Everyone sees it now. The fake listings, the harassment, the lies. It's over." Karen laughed bitterly. "Over? No, Marcus? It's just beginning." Before Marcus could respond, flashing blue lights cut through the night. Police cars pulled up, sirens off, but lights blaring. 2 officers stepped out, heading straight toward Marcus. "Sir, we received a report of harassment and threats made by you toward Ms. Thompson." Marcus's stomach dropped. "What? That's not true!" Karen gasped, dramatically clutching her chest. "He's been stalking me, following me. He even threatened me tonight." Marcus stared at her, stunned. She had lured him here. This was the trap. The officers separated them. One pulled Marcus aside. "Sir, she called us in tears. Said you've been harassing her for weeks. Said she was scared for her safety. We have to take this seriously." Marcus forced himself to stay calm. "Officer, I'm the one suing her for harassment. I have mountains of evidence against her. This is retaliation. Please check the record. There's an active case file under my name." The officer studied him carefully. "That may be true, but right now this is her complaint. We'll need both your statements." Meanwhile, Karen played her part perfectly, crying, shaking, painting Marcus as the villain. It was theater and she was the star. Marcus knew if this stuck, it could wreck everything. His credibility in court, his career, his case. So he made a decision. "Officer, I want to show you something right now," Marcus said firmly. He pulled out his phone, scrolling quickly. Earlier that evening, when he left home, his new security system had auto-synced to his cloud. He pulled up the footage from his driveway camera. It showed him leaving his house at 11:45 p.m., alone heading straight to his car. No stalking, no lurking, no Karen. "This is tonight," Marcus said, holding up the screen. "She texted me to lure me here. I didn't harass her. I walked into a setup." The officers exchanged looks. One of them turned toward Karen. "Ma'am, is it true you initiated contact tonight?" Karen's tears faltered. I was just scared, I thought." But the damage was done. The officers didn't arrest Marcus. They simply documented the incident and warned both parties to avoid each other. Karen's plan had failed. But as Marcus drove home, hands gripping the wheel tight, he realized something chilling. Karen wasn't just playing HOA games anymore. She was willing to weaponize the police, the system itself, to destroy him. And that made her more dangerous than ever. The next day, Marcus sat with his sister Nina at the kitchen table. She was furious when she heard what happened. "She tried to get you arrested?" "Marcus, this isn't neighbor drama anymore. This is obsession. She's not going to stop until she ruins you, or worse." Marcus rubbed his temples. "I know, but I've got her trail. Every move she makes, she leaves evidence. She's desperate now, reckless, and that's when people make mistakes." Nina grabbed his hand. "Just promise me one thing. Don't let her drag you down to her level. You're better than her." Marcus nodded. His sister was right. This wasn't just about beating Karen. It was about showing everyone that truth wins, even against lies this ugly. But deep inside, Marcus also knew the final showdown was coming. And this time, there would be no middle ground. If you were Marcus, would you go public with the police set up to expose Karen's desperation? Or would you hold it back for the courtroom finale? What's your strategy? Silence or spotlight? The courtroom was packed. Neighbors filled the benches, whispering nervously, waiting for the drama that had divided their community to finally reach its end. Karen sat at the defendant's table, her hair perfectly styled, her expression cold but twitching at the corners. She still tried to project control, but her eyes gave her away. Fear. Marcus sat at the plaintiff's table, calm, collected, suit sharp as steel. But inside, his pulse hammered. This wasn't just another case. This was his life, his home, his name. The judge entered. "Court is now in session." Marcus rose first, presenting his opening. He didn't shout. He didn't dramatize. He spoke plainly, letting the facts cut sharper than any flourish could. "Your Honor, my client is myself. And I stand here not because I wanted this fight, but because I had no choice. For months, Ms. Thompson has harassed me, targeted my home, my family, my livelihood. She listed my house online without consent. She spread false accusations in the neighborhood. She weaponized her HOA authority to bully and intimidate. And when that failed, she tried to weaponize the police." Gasps rippled through the room. Karen's attorney shifted uncomfortably. Marcus continued, his voice steady. "This is not about a personal grudge. This is about accountability. About whether power can be abused without consequence. About whether truth still matters." Karen's turn came. Her lawyer spun the story. Marcus was intimidating, hostile, always causing problems. Karen painted herself as the victim, a woman just trying to keep her neighborhood safe. But as she spoke, her voice cracked. Her eyes darted nervously to the audience. She could feel it. The crowd wasn't buying it anymore. Not after everything. Then Marcus delivered the knockout. He called Melissa to the stand. She explained how Karen had created the fake listing using her HOA email account, tying her abuse of power directly to her official role. Next, James testified about Karen's harassment campaign, flyers, fake accounts, the trash planning video. Finally, Marcus introduced the police body cam footage from the park. It showed Karen pretending to cry, accusing him of stalking, while Marcus calmly presented his driveway camera footage, proving otherwise. The courtroom watched Karen unravel on screen, her lies exposed frame by frame. By the time the video ended, Karen's mask had shattered completely. She looked small, desperate, cornered. The judge's voice cut through the silence. "Miss Thompson, the evidence against you is overwhelming. This court finds you guilty of defamation, harassment, and abuse of authority. Effective immediately, you are removed from your position on the HOA board. Furthermore, you are ordered to pay damages to Mr. Carter in the amount of $200,000. Karen gasped. "No! This isn't fair! He tricked you all! He's the liar, not me." But the gavel came down. Bang! Case closed. The room erupted, neighbors whispering, some even clapping softly. Karen was escorted out, still screaming, her power crumbling with every step. Marcus sat quietly, exhaling the breath he'd been holding for months. It was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Marcus gave one statement, short and clear. This was never about revenge. This was about standing up to abuse. I hope this reminds people that no one is above accountability, no matter how small the stage or how big the ego. The law is for everyone. He didn't say more. He didn't need to. The victory spoke for itself. That evening, the neighborhood felt different. The air lighter, the tension gone. Families waved at each other again. Kids played in the cul-de-sac without Karen's disapproving eyes watching from her window. Neighbors gathered at Marcus's place, bringing food and drinks, turning his home into the heart of the community. Mrs. Jenkins hugged him. "You didn't just win for yourself. You won for all of us." "Thank you." Marcus smiled. For the first time in months, he felt at peace. Later that night, Marcus sat on his porch with his sister Nina. They watched the sun dip behind the rooftops. "You did it," she said softly. "We did it," Marcus corrected, squeezing her hand. "Karen tried to tear us apart, but in the end, she brought everyone together." Nina smiled. "So, what now?" Marcus leaned back, looking at the stars. "Now, we live. We enjoy the quiet. We remember that home is worth fighting for, and we never let anyone make us feel like we don't belong." For the first time in a long time, Marcus believed those words. And as laughter drifted from inside his house, he knew one thing for certain. Karen was gone. But the lesson would remain forever. What would you have done in Marcus's place? Would you have taken Karen down in court, or tried to forgive and move on quietly? Share your thoughts, because in every neighborhood, there's always one Karen